Since we're all talking about the World Cup, let's talk about how this soccer player was murdered after he lost the game. On June 22nd, 1994, Andres Escobar, who was the captain of Colombia's soccer team, was playing against the US and scored in his own net during the World Cup. Colombia ended up losing the game 2-1 and was eliminated. 10 days later, Andres was confronted by a group of men outside a club in the city of Medellin. These men began harassing Andres and making fun of him for shooting in his own net, and even though he tried to reason with them, they shot him 6 times. The next day, police arrested Humberto Castro Munoz, who was associated with powerful criminals and drug traffickers. It's been said that the criminals that Humberto was working with were betting a lot of money on Colombia to win, and when they lost because of Andres' mistake, then they ordered Humberto to murder him. Humberto was sentenced to 43 years in prison, but only served 11 years before being released for good behavior. More than 120,000 people attended Andres' funeral, and Colombia created a statue of him in 2002.
This boy was forced to live as a girl. In 1965, twin boys were born and they went by the name Bruce and Brian, and they were born in Winnipeg, Canada. By 8 months old, the boys ended up getting a condition, and the only way to fix it was to get a circumcision done, and in the end, Bruce was the only one who got it done. Unfortunately, Bruce got a botched circumcision which burned off his whole private part. The family was referred to Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore to speak with Dr. John Money, and he recommended a surgical sex change from male to female. Bruce's parents agreed to the procedure, thinking that this was the best option. The procedure was successful, and instead of Bruce, now their name was Brenda. By the age of 2, Brenda would rip off her dresses, refuse to play with dolls, and just wanted to play with toy cars and guns. Brenda complained to her parents and teachers that she felt like a boy, and they just told her that she was going through a phase. At the age of 14, a local psychiatrist told Brenda's parents that they just needed to tell Brenda the truth, and once they did, Brenda just felt like everything finally made sense. Brenda embarked on the painful process to go back to a male, and once all that was done, Brenda was now David. Although David was able to be a boy again, he was traumatized from his past when he would go to annual doctor visits with his twin brother, and Dr. John Money would make them do sexual acts on each other, and he would take photos of them. Although they both resisted doing these activities, Dr. John Money would get very angry with them, and they were honestly very scared of him. Dr. John Money claimed that this was important for healthy adult gender identity. Unfortunately, due to the traumatizing childhood, David's brother ended up taking his life in 2002, and just 2 years later, David ended up taking his own life as well.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 17. There's an 8-year-old boy named Amarjit Sada who became the world's youngest serial killer after murdering his 6-year-old cousin, his baby sister, and a neighbor's newborn daughter. The CIA has a legitimate heart attack gun, and it was exposed to the public in the late 1970s. Project Sunshine was research conducted by the US government in which, after the atomic bombings on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a network of agents was recruited to locate recently deceased children and steal their body parts for testing on radiation. Both the US and Russia used dolphins and whales to spy on various countries. The FBI sent an anonymous letter to Martin Luther King Jr. telling him to kill himself. It reads, "King, there is only one thing left for you to do." You know what it is. Guys, I just released my first YouTube video. I'm sure you'll love it. Link in bio.
Worst plane crash ever recorded.
Never listen to this song if you're in the Philippines. It's called My Way by Frank Sinatra. If you listen to this song in the Philippines, you might literally die. It's so cursed that it has its own crime class there. It has been even banned in karaoke bars. It used to incite people at bars and led to a large amount of killings. But would you listen to it?
Yo, what's up? Here's some scary facts about our world that you probably didn't want to know, part 12. I guess you could start saying that zombies are real, and the reason I say that is because there is a sickness called walking corpse syndrome, in which the brain starts to believe that it's dead and that it has no soul, and it starts to make you act like a zombie. Yikes. So while we're talking about zombies, I thought I would go ahead and mention this fact to you. Back in the day, there was a serial killer named Jeffrey Dahmer, and what he would do with his victims is he would try to make sex zombies out of them by drilling holes in their head and pouring acid down the hole. There were over 15 dead bodies found in Benjamin Franklin's basement. Is there something the history books aren't telling us? I didn't even want to say this one because it kind of freaked me out too, but if you get bruises a lot, it could be signs of a spirit trying to contact you, as well as a lot of other ways. A man was once being held at gunpoint on a video on the dark web and was forced to eat his wife's organs or he would have died.
Here is how you can survive a piranha attack. Let's say that you find yourself in the Amazon River surrounded by piranhas. What you should do is first of all stay as still as possible and don't make any kind of noise, don't even scream for help, because they locate their prey with their excellent hearing. Now start moving really slow towards deeper water, where it's colder and the currents are stronger, so there won't be any piranhas there, but you may find a crocodile. But hey, now you know how to survive a piranha attack.
Why you should never do this. This is 17-year-old Michael Dumas. He was on a church trip to Florida with some of his friends. While on this trip, they went to Pompano Beach, and he would be buried in the sand as you see here. He'd soon be unburied and all would be well until later that night when he would wake up in the middle of the night and be itching like crazy and sweating. At first, this would be labeled as an ear infection and he would be sent home with drops, but it would soon be obvious that that's not what it was, as he started to develop these raised bumpy rashes. And he became pretty lethargic, just wanting to sleep all the time. It got even worse to the point where he was having these big nasty blisters. And that's when he'd finally be diagnosed with cutaneous larva migrans, which is pretty much dog or cat hookworm. So pretty much these work by the dog or the cat pooping in the sand and contaminating it, and then not long after, these microscopic larvae hatch, and then you step in this contaminated sand and you end up looking like Michael. After all of this, he ended up developing a staph infection as well, and if it's not bad enough just him getting infected, 5 others from this trip got infected with hookworm as well.
Okay, because that's exactly what I thought when I saw the video. Like, I've met goats before, okay? Their eyes are hella creepy and they look like this. Now tell me what the hell that is. And that's why many people believe that this is actually a skinwalker trying to enter the girl's home. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then watch my latest video. It's staring into my soul.
Let me get a pair of twins. All right. They're born the same time, they're the same age. And now one of them I will send off at 90% the speed of light. And the other I'll keep down here on Earth. So we can ask, how do their aging rates compare? Okay? Turns out, this twin that I've already sent, his clock ticks 44% as fast as this twin's clock. Our clock here on Earth. So, this twin is aging more slowly than this one. That's at 90% the speed of light. Let's pump it up some more. How about 99% the speed of light? Now the time ticks at only 14% the rate, as it does back here on Earth. How about 99.9%? We're getting closer and closer to the speed of light itself. And at that speed, the clock ticks only 4.5% as fast. So, what does this mean? Tell you what it means. This twin that traveled for 5 years and comes back, if they went at 99.9% the speed of light, after 5 years, they're 5 years older. We have aged 110 years. It's called the twin paradox.
These are videos you can never watch at night. We all know how there's some videos where you just can't watch them at night because they're that scary. Well, in this series, I'll be showing you all of those videos. So, be ready to get terrified.
Who are you? Please let me in. Huh? Please help me. What? What's wrong with you? It is me. What? It took my daughter.
Well, I know I'm not sleeping after watching that video. This video has been going viral recently and nobody knows the origins of it. It shows what appears to be a ghostly woman standing outside of some man's window at night. And she says something took her daughter and did this to her. But nobody knows what that is. The man who uploaded the video hasn't updated anybody on if he's seen her again, or if he's okay, leaving people to worry about him. But I can't imagine looking out my window at night and seeing this.
Let's talk about this picture. This is why if I ever have kids, I'll never let them use the bathroom alone. A 7-year-old girl and her mom were headed to Target, and she was getting some clothes for school. Her mom also wanted to grab some snacks for movie night. So while her mom went to go grab popcorn and other snacks, she told her daughter to go pick out clothes for school. When her daughter finally finished and picked out the clothes, she went up to her mom and said something strange happened. A sad pale lady had came up to her, telling her that she wished she could have her own daughter that looked just like her. The mom, who thought the daughter was just joking around, laughed it off and said, "Let's go." While heading to the register, the daughter shook her mom and said, "That's the lady who told me she wanted a daughter just like me," pointing at a mannequin. The mom laughed, thinking the daughter was still being silly. You know how kids have wild imaginations, always playing around. While at the register, the daughter had to go to the bathroom, so the mom told her to hurry up. It was only a couple hours down, by the way. While in the bathroom, the daughter texted the mom saying the pale lady's in here who wanted a daughter. The mom, trying to get in a rush back home to her other kids, said, "Hurry up, we have to go. Stop playing around." 10 minutes later, and the daughter never came out. The mother, who was waiting outside the bathroom at this time, rushes in the bathroom to see what the heck is going on. The daughter was nowhere to be found. She even checked the stalls to see if her daughter was hiding, standing on a toilet or something. On one of the stalls, she found her daughter's cell phone on the floor. By the way, if you made it this far in the video, comment down below your favorite fruit. Mine is mangoes. When she checked her phone, this was the last image found in it. Police still to this day have no explanation on what happened to that little girl.
These two sisters had a competition to see who could get their dad to sleep with them first. Yeah, you did hear that right. This brings us to Travis Fieldgrove and his 17-year-old daughter, Samantha Kirshner. So in 2018, Samantha would express interest to her mom that she wanted to meet her dad, as she had always longed for him to be in her life, and they'd start to grow closer, and she'd also form a close relationship with her half-sister in the process. So at this time, her half-sister and Samantha are fighting for her dad's attention, and they come up with this competition to see who can get the dad to sleep with him first. It really wouldn't take that long, because in September of 2018, Samantha and her dad would sleep together for the first time, and then a month later, they'd get married. The mom had no idea what was going on, but she soon gets a clue and contacts the police, where Sam is brought in and confesses that her and her dad have been getting it on, and she says that both her and her dad didn't believe that they were actually related. Police are quick to say, "Why would you do this, since there's a possibility that you all are related?" And she says the jealousy of fighting for attention just got to her, and she just wanted to win this competition. A DNA test would take place, and he was the father, and they'd both be arrested in 2019. Travis would get 2 years in prison, and Sam would get 9 months probation and 22 days in jail. Travis is now out of jail in order to have no contact with Samantha, and he says that his life after jail is going great.
What are you doing?
This is the gun. Keep driving.
No, it's not. Stop. Come on, man. I got a family. What are you doing?
I got a family too. Now drive.
What are you doing?
Drive.
Please stop.
Drive the car, miss.
I have 4 kids. What are you doing?
What you just saw were some of the final moments of Uber driver Christy Spicuzza's life. This is an extremely sad and horrific story. Christy Spicuzza was a mother from Pennsylvania who worked for Uber. She had a loving family, and on the night of February 10th, 2022, she was expecting to just work her normal shift on Uber. But on that tragic night, Christy picked up this man, Calvin Crew. Now, Christy had a dash cam video camera which was facing her and her passengers. And for the first 20 minutes or so of this ride, Calvin just sat in the back seat, not saying anything, and Christy even tried to ask him questions like, did you have a good day? How's it going? But at one point, Calvin pulls out a pistol, places it against Christy's skull, and informs her that she needs to drive. Now, Christy would continue to drive, and she begged the man in the back seat for her life, talking about her amazing children and her family and how it doesn't have to go like this, but it seems like Calvin's mind was already decided. And just 2 days later, Christy's car and her dead body were found in a neighboring area. Calvin had forced Christy to drive out to an isolated wooded area and murdered her out in the woods. After the murder, Calvin had used Christy's cell phone to access some of her financial apps like Cash App and sent himself some money, but it wasn't even a very large sum of money that this man stole. Calvin's girlfriend, Tanaya Mullen, was actually the one who called the Uber for her boyfriend that night. And she had even texted him that evening and said, I'm not going to jail if we get caught. Which is true because she never ended up going to jail or prison for her involvement in this horrifically sad crime. This is just such a tragic story that obviously did not need to happen, and that footage is some of the most horrifying that I've ever seen.
A 14-year-old boy named Sebastian Guerrero decided to go for a walk up in the mountains, and he wanted to go explore the different caves. There was light coming out of one of the cave entrances, and he's starting to hear sounds. He realizes it's definitely a person, and they're definitely screaming. There also sounds to be a large contingent of other people, and he peeks his head right around the edge of the opening, and he looks inside, and what he sees causes him to just freeze in terror. He would run nearly 10 miles to the nearest police station. The way he described it to police was he basically thought he saw vampires. One of the police officers, his name was Luis Martinez, he would say, okay kid, bring me to this cave and I'll have a look around. Later on in the day, the other police officers, they realized that Luis and the boy had not returned yet. The police and the Mexican army, they head out to where this cave was, and when they saw what was inside the cave, it would shock the world.
This is the scariest story about the lunch lady. There was a lunch lady named Judy, and everybody in school loved her. But they loved her food even more. Every single day they would rush to the lunchroom just to eat her delicious food, but one day a boy in 7th grade noticed something strange. In the back of the kitchen, he saw a mysterious door he never seen before. And he's been buying lunch for a year straight. He then went to the principal's office and told him what he saw. The principal then made his way down to the lunchroom and asked Judy about the door. She played dumb for a little bit, but eventually showed him. And what he saw inside made him freeze in horror. Inside were multiple children's dead bodies, completely cut up and strung up on the wall. Judy then looked at the principal with a smile on her face and said, "How do you think my food tastes so good? This is the reason why." Judy was arrested and fired, and is now serving 105 years in prison. But the crazy part is, how did this school allow a lunch lady to kill students and then sell their meat as lunch food?
People who live streamed their passings, part 1. Here we have 19-year-old Ocean, who was from France, and she worked at a retirement home. On May 10th of 2016, she would go live on what would be her last Periscope of her life. She'd start this live in her apartment, talking about how depressed she was and how she couldn't really find the energy to get out of bed. She'd also go on to talk about her ex and how bad of a person he was and how that he had abused her. Even with all this, she'd be picked on and made fun of in the comments throughout the whole live. During this live, she would warn her younger viewers and tell them to sign off, as she has something very big planned as her way to send a message, but like I said, nobody was really taking her too seriously. Eventually, she'd end up leaving her apartment and heading over to Egley train station, where she would sadly throw herself right into a train, and this train would hit her, and unfortunately, she would not survive. This would all be captured on live, and the next thing you'd see would be one of the first responders attempting to end the live stream, and he would actually do that at around 4:30.
Interview with People magazine, Gypsy Rose and her husband Ryan Anderson are sharing their love story. The couple got married in a prison ceremony in July 2022, but up until this point, we hadn't really known the details of how they met. But shortly before she was released, both Gypsy and Ryan spoke with People magazine and shared some more details of their love story. Ryan Anderson is a 37-year-old special education teacher originally from Gypsy's home state of Louisiana. He told People that they first met back in 2020 when he decided to take a chance and write to her. He said, "It was when Tiger King was really popular. My coworker at the time said, 'I want to write to Tiger King.' And I said, 'I'll tell you what, if you write to him, I'll write to Gypsy Rose Blanchard.'" In that first letter, Ryan told Gypsy, quote, "what her story meant to me, and on the second page, I just let her have it. I told her everything about me." He didn't expect to hear back, but by May 2020, the two were corresponding regularly. Ryan said that he would get butterflies when he got an email from Gypsy. And when the two spoke on the phone for the first time and he heard her voice, that all but sealed the deal for him. Gypsy was also falling in love as Ryan, quote, became her emotional backbone. She said that they met when the pandemic was really strong and she had a lot of emotional ups and downs because of it. She said, "Ryan has seen me through some really good times, some really hard times. I would say that he is probably the most compassionate soul that I've ever met and the most patient." She said, "I could be a lot to handle. I could be an emotional handful, but he is so patient with her." Because of restrictions thanks to the pandemic, they didn't meet in person until July 2021. But they continued to get closer, and according to the interview with People, Ryan became so in tune with Gypsy's emotions that he could tell how she was feeling as soon as she picked up the phone. Gypsy said, "We've been able to build this emotional bond that within 2 seconds of talking on the phone, he knows my emotions." She said, "I'm thankful that I have a man that is open enough with his own emotions so I could let my emotions flow." On July 21st, 2022, Gypsy and Ryan got married in a prison ceremony. And today, December 28th, 2023, he was the one to pick her up when she was released. Gypsy also mentioned in the interview with People that she wants kids one day. She said, "It's hard because I'm going into a new life and I'm newly married and I'm going to have kids one day and I'm going to have to explain to my kids why their grandmother on mommy's side isn't around. And that's going to be a really hard conversation." But by all accounts, it seems like Gypsy is really happy with Ryan and that he has been there supporting her through a lot. So hopefully he will be continuing to support her as she adjusts to her new life.
This is the scary story about the peephole. A 15-year-old girl named Donna lived with her father in a very small house. Ever since her mother died, Donna had depended on her dad for everything. One morning, Donna's father was leaving for a business trip. He then told her that he won't be back until later that night, and with that, he kissed Donna on the forehead and left. Later that day, when Donna came home from school, she did some homework and watched TV. The clock then struck midnight, and she noticed her father still wasn't back, so she decided to go to bed. That night, Donna had a dream. She found herself standing on the edge of a busy highway. She then looked across the highway and saw a familiar figure standing there. It was her father, and his hands were cupped around his mouth trying to yell something. But Donna couldn't make out what he was saying. She noticed her father's eyes were very sad, and he seemed to be desperately trying to communicate with her. She could barely make out the words he was saying, but it sounded like "don't open the door." Suddenly, Donna woke up to a tapping noise. Then somebody rang the doorbell. Donna then scrambled out of bed, got dressed, and ran down to the front door. Looking through the peephole, she saw her father's face outside. He was staring right at her, and the doorbell was still ringing. "Okay, hold on, I'm coming," she shouted. She pulled back the deadbolt and was about to unlatch the door when she stopped. She then looked through the peephole again, and she noticed there was something off about her father's expression. His eyes were wide open, and he looked terrified. She then slid the deadbolt back into place. "Dad, did you forget your keys?" Donna yelled. The doorbell just kept ringing. "Dad, answer me." Still, the doorbell continued to ring. "Dad, please, I need you to answer me. Is there someone else out there with you?" Still, the doorknob continued to ring. She then yelled at the top of her lungs, "I'm not opening the door until you answer me." The doorbell kept ringing and ringing, but for some reason, her father refused to answer her desperate cries. For the rest of the night, Donna sat in the corner next to the door, crying and helplessly listening to the doorbell ringing over and over again. She then eventually fell asleep. In the morning when she woke up, she noticed it was very quiet. She then got up and went over to the peephole and looked inside. Her father was still there, just staring at her. She then cautiously opened the door and was confronted with a sight that filled her with unimaginable horror. Her father's severed head was hanging from a nail above the door, and there was a note attached to the doorbell. In weird sloppy handwriting, it read, "Clever girl.